Who would like to read our acknowledgement? Paul, please.
And I would like to present something to you, if I may. We have all
okay.
across our nation, we have people who recite the Pledge of Allegiance. And we should be doing that. We have not done that. We're elected officials for the last 7 months. And if it's never too late, I would suggest that we recite the Pledge of Allegiance, and we do that now.
Okay.
And I wish that we stand up and do that,
Okay.
if we can. I even have a flag.
We do
And
that.
Paul, are you going to begin our meeting with the,
Yeah.
Pledge of Allegiance,
well,
just like to do in the council.
And then the acknowledgement.
You can do whatever you want after that.
You'll be satisfied, Paul. Okay.
Um,
I
So
say we
I
do it.
hope that you would unmute yourself so we can hear each other. And let's all stand if we can. And we'll recite the Pledge of Allegiance. You ready?
All you see is my belly, but that's okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Flag.
of
United
the
States of
United
America.
Republic
States
which
of
is
America,
And to
And
the
to the
republic
republic
for which it stands,
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, with
indivisible,
liberty and justice for all.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Hey,
Um,
now for my 5th grade arithmetic class. Okay.
who would like to cite the acknowledgement, the tribal acknowledgement that we have?
I don't have it in front of me.
Access to it?
I don't have it in front of me.
You do?
Where is it? I have it, Kevin.
Okay. Would you please, Maureen?
Yes.
I think it'd be
Let
nice
us,
to rotate around. Thank you.
let us acknowledge we reside on the ancestral lands and waters of the Coast Salish people who have called this place home since time immemorial. And let us honor inherent Aboriginal and treaty rights that have been passed down from generation to generation.
Thank you, Maureen. Okay, Catherine, can we go over the roll call, please?
Yes, Sharon.
Here.
Dave Anderson.
To turn the light back up.
Here. I see him here. Bill. Janet.
here,
Kyle. David Dellendorf.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Jane.
Here.
Patty.
Here.
Tony.
Present.
Dick.
Here.
Liz.
here,
Bob.
Here.
Kevin.
Here.
Olivia.
here,
Maureen.
Here.
Anne Marie.
here.
And Tom.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay. And for the record, Kyle Davies messaged me just a few moments before the meeting that he has a call that has just come in. Remember, he's one of our first responders. So I hope that everybody he's responding to is okay, and thank him for his service. He said he would likely be still able to join the meeting, just be late. So with that, let's go to approval of the minutes from July 12th and July 14th. Let's begin with the 12th. Any additions, changes, issues for the 12th? Dick Grout.
Yeah, I can't remember which set of meetings it is, but Catherine, you used first names, and I think given that that's a public record, I don't think that's appropriate. I think it ought to be, if you just want to use one name, use last names. You know, people don't necessarily know who all of us are by first name.
Okay, we will try and correct that going forward. Any other changes or additions or concerns of the 12th? If not, I would accept a motion to adopt the minutes of the 12th.
to adopt the minutes.
Olivia, and then second by Liz. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the meeting minutes from the 12th, July 12th, excuse me, are adopted. July 14th, any changes or additions? Janet?
I think I was at that meeting, but I'm not listed as one of the attendees. So,
Okay, we should add you in there, so let's make that change. Any other changes or additions? Okay, with that, I would accept a motion to adopt the minutes of July 14th.
A motion.
I'm sorry, I mean, all those in favor of adopting the minutes of July 14th, yeah. So we have a motion and a second, and now we're under, so sorry on that, getting confused here. My brain,
Aye.
maybe I'm here, my brain isn't. Okay, any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the July 14th meeting minutes are adopted. Okay, now for the agenda today, with the review and approval of recommendations, I know that Bill and I think one other member, and I did see some emails, by the way, and Bob, I saw yours, I just didn't have time to read it thoroughly. I know that Bill and at least one other member had requested drafts of the recommendations that we were going to be reviewing and approving this evening. The reason those were not sent out is they are not finalized. And so for this evening, what I wanted to suggest was that we get an update. There's 5 recommendations, so we can update where those are in the process. And then I think that we need to put a deadline on ourselves. And what I would like to suggest is 14 days out, and that will be maybe our next meeting. And we could say that in 2 weeks, the recommendations would be finished. And that would mean that 3 days, at least 3 days prior to that, so 11 days from now, that the meeting minutes would be submitted to the full CRC. I mean, the recommendations would be submitted to the full CRC so that they could see them. Where the recommendations are at this point in time is that Megan has shared them back with the leads for that subject matter to review. And they're in that process right now, most of them. And I believe some of them aren't even that far along yet. So with the 5 recommendations, who are our 5 leads for the different subject areas? Do you want to just say where you are in your review of your recommendations at this point? So let's go with Bob, and then we're going to go with Jane.
Right, we finalized ours about, I don't know, 3 months ago. We
Yeah.
sent them into the appropriate people to look at,
Yep.
approve, and as far as I know, I'm done with everything I needed to do. So whoever's got it now has got the finished recommendation. And as you will recall, it is just a recommendation that the council and all of the county officers consider the community values as the Declaration of Community Values as they're conducting their business.
Correct. And that one, I believe, Bob, is in final form, but I believe maybe Megan and I were just waiting to hear back from you on what was sent back to you several weeks ago. So if you're saying it's all good, then that one's
Yes,
we'll consider it good.
I do have this concern with it, Kevin. And that is that it ought not to be delivered to the council unless the community values passes. Or do you think they have the good sense to ignore it if the community values fails?
I'm sorry, I froze there for a minute, but I think what you were saying is you were asking, actually, could you restate it? I'm really sorry.
Sure. The question is whether it depends on this. It depends on whether or not the Declaration for Community Values passes in November. If it passes, then the recommendation makes sense. If it fails, we're recommending that they consult something that didn't pass.
Right.
So we can either somehow hold it until after the election, or trust that they have the good sense to not use it if the thing hasn't passed. Do you think the latter is true?
I think that our elected officials are very bright, and so are our department heads. And so they would probably be able to work their way around that and
Right.
recognize that those sorts of statements are really important. If we can go to Jane, and I'm going to run into another room because I keep freezing and getting every other word.
Okay, so I'll go ahead. With regard to the Justice and Equity Subcommittee recommendations, there are two that are out, well, three that are outstanding, two of which I have reviewed what Megan did in the way of edits and sent those back to her to be for final completion. So two are finished. And one of them that is also finished, another one which is related to section 2.60 was sort of a joint one done by the Governance and the Justice and Equity Subcommittee. That one is finished. Then there's one additional one related to the personnel section that still needs to be finalized. So Megan's edited what I gave her, and I need to give her my final edits for that one to be completed. And lastly, there is one that needs to be created related to the Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Commission. If that is voted on by the electorate, there needs to be a recommendation with regard to the composition of that body, the composition and function of that body, because that is not in the amendment explicitly. So I will be drafting a recommendation regarding that. It's based on the findings that came out of our work on that amendment in the first place. We opted not to include that level of detail in the amendment, so it should be in a recommendation for the county council to consider should that amendment be passed. So all that to say, I have one on the personnel section that needs final tweaking. I can get that done today or tomorrow and send that back to Megan. And then there'll be one more for me to draft that's based on material I already have. So that'll be pretty straightforward.
So Jane, you have a total of two then, or three? I thought you had
Two
three.
left. Yeah, in total we had three, and yeah, there's only, well, sorry, in total we had four. There's two left. Yeah.
Okay, but none of those four are finalized yet.
Two of them are, yeah. They're sitting with Megan as in final version now, yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay, so Megan has them. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I reviewed what she did and I've given her final edits, so yeah.
So the fourth one that you just mentioned, is that an additional one that was not on our
Yeah.
original list?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's an additional one because we opted not to include that level of detail in the amendment. So we realized we should make it a recommendation, and Randy was in agreement with that idea.
Okay, okay. And then what's our fifth? So you have four more still out, not completely finished, but in all of them very close to being finished.
I only have two that are still outstanding out of four in total. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then our fifth recommendation?
And there isn't a fifth one.
No, I'm asking
Oh.
what for the body, Maureen?
Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to speak for Paul and myself because we all worked on this one's the public records. Before I do that, one of the emails I sent to you, Kevin, and to Olivia is to ask if we can get a list of the proposed amendments that for both years and the list of the recommendations so that we might refer to it during meetings. It gets confusing and
Yep.
I don't know which end is up. So if that can be done by Megan, that would be great.
Yeah, actually,
so-
Maureen, I saw that email and was about to respond to you. I think you sent it at about 2:00 this afternoon. So excellent recommendation, and we will make sure it happens. It would help me too, actually, and I've got them in front of me, but I just want to make sure I've got them right.
I know, it's fine.
And what I wanted to do, just to clarify quickly on that, so the plan, Jane, I'll come back to you in just a sec. The plan is to send out the amendments that we've already submitted, in what form they were finally submitted in, which we approved, but just having them in front of us. And then the other amendments that we voted to advance that have not been submitted yet, that would be for year two. And all now 6 recommendations. Jane, the 5th recommendation that you're doing, that will, I believe, should at least have some discussion. I think it totally makes sense. You've already spoken to Randy, but I think that should have some discussion by the full CRC. So we should put that on a future agenda as well. With that, Jane, did you have another comment before we have Maureen talk about the last recommendation?
Yeah, just on what Maureen just asked, if we could get, it's important also as part of our record, because some of those prior, what used to be amendments that turned into recommendations, some of them were sort of taken off the table, if you will, because they wouldn't stand as recommendations. So I think it's important that we have a record of why that occurred, because you'll all remember that master Excel spreadsheet that contained in different sheets are amendments, proposed amendments 21, 22, and then the recommendations. We didn't make recommendations for that long list of 12, right? So anyway, I think it's a good tracking of what's evolved.
Okay, great. Maureen.
The only one I believe we have in this recommendation list is the public records, which is a request to the council as a recommendation to make public records more transparent to the public. And we list out a couple of thoughts on that. And that has been reviewed. It's been approved by the PA's office, and it should be ready to go.
Okay, great, great. And then Tony, with elections, you sent me a note, but could you clarify that for the group too?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. The elections subcommittee had a recommendation on elections observation, and that's done. Megan has all that she needs, and she responded that it's all done.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for that. And then Tom Starr.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to Tony's comment. The recommendation that I authored had a last sentence in it. It says, this has to do with election or ballot processing. If there are changes in the schedule for any of these activities, the elections office shall give at least 1 hour telephone notice to the party representative. As you may know, that's been sort of a problem.
Yeah.
And that got dropped off the version that I'm looking at from February. So if you're sending out a new one, and if Tony concurs with my last sentence, that should be added. Check to be sure it's there.
Yeah.
I'll check when I see it.
Yeah, thanks,
So
Tom.
no-
I think Megan has it in full.
Okay, yeah. So what I was just going to say is when Megan sends it back to the lead for that subject, so I guess in this case it was Tony, then
Okay.
then that's when those corrections need to be made, and that's what we're doing. Like with some of the ones where people were saying, "I'm done," I sent it to Megan. Megan will send it back a last time to make sure those sorts of things are taken care of. Jane, I'll get to you in 1 second. I wanted to go also to Janet. The other recommendation, we didn't have 5. I think we had several more. We had tourism as well. So do we know where that one is?
Yep, Megan has it. She worked on it. It's done. I'm just like the other one's waiting. It's final. I just need to get it back, whatever the final version is going to be. But yeah,
Okay.
she's got it. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Okay, Jane.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm conscious of the fact that if we really have to read Megan's final versions of things, because if things aren't there that should be there, it's for us to catch, not her. She's playing an editorial role. I'm conscious also of the fact that the findings for our amendments were submitted.
I'm gonna circle on to findings as soon as we're done with the recommendation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for raising that. So any others on recommendations? Okay, could everybody, even if you've already done it, just that final, if you could email Megan and Olivia and myself and let us know that this language, so you're the lead for that subject, and whatever you're attaching is the language. When I say this language, that you send us an email and you say, this is the final language, and that, because Megan sent it to you, and like between Tony and Tom, maybe Tony, I think you said the final actually did have that language in it, but let's just make sure. So those recommendations go to the council or to other elected officials in the final form that we all approved. So if we can just get one last sign off on that, that'd be great. And then those, we're going to give ourselves a deadline for 2 weeks from now. And then actually the deadline for finishing those will be 10 days from now, so that the full commission can look at them before the meeting on the, whatever that is, 2 Wednesdays from now. So is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Now, the other thing is, Olivia and I were going back and forth. Thank you, Sharon. August 18th deadline. On the findings following our last meetings, and those were submitted, what we thought was final form. What I'm hearing from a couple folks is maybe those weren't. And so luckily, there's not a firm deadline on the findings. And so if there are corrections or additions or issues with the findings, then what we need to do is review those and just make those edits. And so let's go to Jane on this subject.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So in terms of the findings that I saw for a couple of the Justice and Equity Committee proposed amendments that went to the full CRC, there was some language in at least one of them that didn't accurately reflect the findings. And so we didn't get a chance as subcommittee heads to review the final language of the findings prior to it being submitted to the county council. So at least I know for myself that that's problematic, certainly. And I think Patty can speak for herself, but I think Patty might have found that with one of the findings related to one of her proposed amendments as well. I'm not sure. I don't want to put the microphone over to Patty on this, but I noted that too. So it's
Okay.
our findings. Yeah. So anyway, I just feel we've got some housekeeping to do there, not to recreate findings, but to make sure that they're accurately presented.
Yeah. Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to send those out to the full CRC, and we can, and let's give ourselves the same deadline on those as the recommendations. That any, actually, no. Randy, I saw you just signed on. A question for you, if I may. Can you hear me, Randy?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Randy, on the findings are a matter of record that you and others in the future would base your, research on or questions with regard to an individual amendment. But there is not a final deadline or timeline associated with those, correct?
I think we talked about this at the last meeting. I thought they were submitted.
They have been, but there's what was brought up is there's a couple corrections that need to be made. And so we want to go ahead and make those corrections and then reapprove them as a full CRC. And so I'd like to expedite that. But I just want to make sure that if I said that the timeline for that was that by the 18th, those would be finalized, that would still work.
Yeah, there's no deadline
Yeah.
that's set for that.
Okay, thank you so much, Randy. Okay, so we're going to give ourselves the same deadline on that as the recommendations. So Olivia, can you send out the findings in the last form that we have them to the full CRC? And then if you were on a subcommittee and you have comments on the findings, please send them to your lead for that subcommittee, your subcommittee chair. And then that subcommittee chair will send a final set of findings to Olivia, myself, and Megan. And we'll consider that the finding, and then we will have that all be submitted back to us by the 18th. Does that work? Dick?
Devin, you said a minute ago, talking about the recommendations, that you wanted to make that in 10 days, so the full CRC had a chance to look at them. I thought that was a good idea, but now you just said the 18th.
Sorry, Sharon put in there the 18th. The 18th is the meeting. So Sunday, the 15th. Sorry. So for the recommendations and for the findings, the deadline for submission back to to Megan, Olivia, and Kevin will be August 15th. We will turn them around immediately. And actually, you're welcome to copy the full CRC. Just take us out of that step. Send them to the full CRC, the recommendations, and this is from the leads on that subject matter only are sending these emails. So you'll send it to the full CRC and say that this is the final for whatever recommendation, or this is the final for the finding. Patty.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on this. And last time I did it wrong, and that's where Jane's coming from, I think, because I just sent findings without having them attached to everything else that gives you the whole story. If the leads are sending these to everybody again, I mean, we're going to have a bunch of stuff in our email. I went to the county website yesterday and looked, and they're all listed there. Now, I didn't read through them, but they do have, and maybe we can go to that website and see what's there. And if we disagree with those, you know, it's already there. Rather than having everybody send emails back and having me not knowing what I'm sending, but okay, I'll send it to everybody.
That's
I'm
why-
just a little confused
Yeah.
with it.
Completely. So Olivia, I think you have the master that was sent, that was submitted, correct?
I mean, everyone has it, it's in their inbox. So just to simplify, if Patty and Jane are the only ones that need to edit, update things, does anyone else need to? Because if it's just the two of you, why involve everyone? You know, if we have to send everything, that's just like double, triple work. So are there any other committee leads that need to edit what was
I
sent?
don't need to.
Sharon?
Okay.
No, I just want to point out that the language on the ranked choice voting amendment is not quite ready, so just want to toss that in there.
Not even- No, no,
We're not talking about that now, I know, but just to
no,
say,
please don't. We're not talking yet. Let's not talk about that yet.
okay.
So right now on recommendations, we have a process that we've agreed to, which is the recommendations will be submitted by August 15th to the full CRC. So that's happening. So everybody sign off on your recommendations. And Anne-Marie, I see you, and I'll come to you in just one sec. On the findings, I think Olivia just made a great point. So let's put this back on each of us a little bit instead of just sending. So let's do this. Let's have Jane and Patty both have edits.
Anything.
No? Okay.
No.
So Jane has edits that she needs to make. So Jane, make those edits and submit them to Olivia, Megan, and myself, and we will, why don't you copy the full CRC on that? And then those will be discussed at our next meeting in 2 weeks. If others would please, Patty's great suggestion, go online, the findings are there. Look at the findings, read them. If there's any additions or changes, or sorry, the 18th is the next meeting. If anybody has any changes or additions, then please submit those and submit them by the 15th. Anne-Marie.
I just wanted to point out that I submitted the findings for the Climate and Environment Committee, and I never saw if changes were made before they were sent. So I don't know if I'm an anomaly or if the other committees are in the same situation. I can go on the website and see what was done. It was just, it wasn't the same format that we had been using. Okay.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. My understanding is we were not making changes, that whatever was submitted by the lead was what was submitted. There may be a discrepancy. Maybe we had a different draft or something with Jane's. And so we can do that. You got everybody who's messaging me right now, stop. I'm not going to read them anymore. It's really hard to chair the meeting and then see these things popping up saying, Kevin, please this, please that. We're done with that. All right. So if you want to message me, you can call me after the meeting, or you can raise your hand and we'll call on you at this point. So Anne-Marie, to your point, I thought that whatever the lead submitted, Jane, I see your hand. I'll get to you in 1 sec. Anne-Marie, what I thought and what I understood was that whatever the lead submitted from that subcommittee was what was submitted. It seems like there may have been some changes. I know that the formatting was a little different after going through our prosecutor's office. I don't believe the prosecutor was making changes to the findings, but it seems that we have some discrepancies. So I think it would be pertinent, and this is why I was saying earlier that everybody should get them. But I would like to ask that each of you who are concerned about the findings, please, and remember the findings are really important. This is the background that people will review if there's a question about one of our amendments. So everybody should go online and read the findings. And if you're on a subcommittee and you don't believe that that reflects well the conversation or the legislative intent, that's what I was looking for that amendment, then please take the time to work with your lead, or if you are the lead, to make suggestions on edits. And let's do that over the next 2 weeks. Jane, did you still have a comment? And then Liz.
Yeah, just to reinforce that point, I mean, if you never saw your final version of findings that was put it up on the web, you really need to go back and look at them, because there was no common look and feel when Megan was drafting those. She kept getting different stuff from all of us. So she made edits, and in some cases those edits were to content. And so I can't emphasize enough that if you're a lead and you want to make sure your findings are accurate, please go back and read them. You shouldn't assume that she just took all your language, because that's not what happened. She's doing a great job, but that isn't what happened.
Okay. All right. Anything more on findings? Oh, I'm sorry, Liz. Yeah.
If it's real simple for someone, for the convenience of the commissioners, to post the link that goes directly to the findings, that would be fabulous. Thank you.
Great suggestion. We'll send that out in an email, actually. Catherine, can you do that? Can you get an email out to the full commission on that? Thank you very much. Olivia, did I see your hand?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Megan. Yes, she did not do our findings perfectly, but she also was under an extreme time crunch, as we were asked by the council to provide them at least 24 hours before we had to present them. And she did not receive everything from the leads until about Friday night at about 6 p.m. So if she had a quick turnaround time, she had to reformat, I just want to say we got to give her a little bit of grace for a quick turnaround. So
Excellent point, Olivia. Thank you. Anything else on findings? Okay. So under next steps, I've asked Mylene Henley to speak to us tonight about the process for going forward with regard to the 6 amendments that we've already submitted. And we will not be, she will be giving us deadlines and asking, and has already asked that people who are going to write the pro and con statements reach out to her. I wanted her to go over all of that with us so that we are all aware. We will not, however, get into with this body a discussion of support or opposition to those 6 amendments, because that is not a county function. So I want to be very clear on that. So what Mylene's going to talk to us about, however, is the process. And then what I would suggest is that actually, why don't we let Mylene go, and then I have a couple comments afterward. Please, Mylene, and thanks for being here tonight, Mylene.
Sure. So this is about who writes the arguments for and against the resolutions. By statute, the legislative authority of any district that puts something on the ballot has the responsibility of appointing committees to write both pro and con arguments. As a practical matter, most districts can't find anybody to argue against their measure. So we have an established practice for finding that the argument against them ourselves. Now, the organization that is sponsoring your measures is the county. These are county propositions. And so the legislative body is the county council, which means they have the responsibility for appointing the committees. As a practical matter, the auditor has always helped with that process, and significant issues like this one has given them names that they have approved by resolution. As a courtesy, they are assuming and allowing the CRC to name its own pro arguments, because they assume that as a body who are putting these forward, you will have the greatest interest in naming people to write the arguments. It doesn't have to be among your body, but we're assuming that many of them will be. So bottom line, we've already missed the deadline, so I moved them out by a week, but these are firm deadlines at this point. Next Tuesday, I will be giving the council the list of people who will be writing the pro and con arguments. If I do not have names from the CRC by next Monday of who will write the pro and con arguments for each of the 6 propositions, then I will be choosing people, and you really don't want me to do that.
I think Tony should write the pro statement for justice and equity and for environment and climate.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to go there. Yeah. Anyway, so the other firm deadline is August 20th. We have to have those arguments in-house. There is a brochure that tells you how long it can be and all those kinds of things, which if you haven't seen it, I will send that out to all of you. But we have to have the names. We can have up to 3 names. There has to be at least 1 name. You cannot use, cannot be anonymous. It cannot be your position only, although you are free to name your position if you wish to. So up to 3 names, any number of people can help. I mean, you can have a committee of 16 writing it, but only 3 names can appear in the voters pamphlet. These will appear both in the written and the online voters pamphlet. People are very interested in these issues. I am getting contacted by a number of people about these, but again, we're assuming that you will want to provide your own pro writers. Questions about any of that, Kevin or other one?
Hey, we may want to provide some of our con writers too.
Yes.
In all seriousness.
Yeah, maybe.
And so I'll go to questions and comments. The one thing I was going to say in the beginning is at this meeting this evening, I would like to have us appoint some leads for each of the different subjects. And then they can pull together a committee and they can decide if it's just them or if it's that person and a couple others. Up, as Marlene said, it can be up to 3. But to Marlene's point, we need to have these names in by next week. So this evening, we're going to be making we're going to put forward some ideas on who those leads are.
And I would really like to have them by Friday because I've got to get this in a resolution and get it to council. So yeah.
Okay. Bob.
I would propose that the various committee chairs write the pro for the particular amendment that they are suggesting, and that we ask the people who wrote the minority report to get together and figure out cons for each, who ought to write the cons for each. These are the people in the entire world most up on what these issues are. And it seems to me that would make sense. You could do it quickly then.
If I may, the council will be selecting the con writers. So the people who have wrote your minority report are on my list, but honestly, we have a very long list of people who are interested in writing the arguments against.
Well, that's good.
The people who hang on, stop. Bob, wait. Bob, wait.
I'm sorry.
Marlene, I want to be very clear. You also have an extremely long list of people who want to write the pro statements. So I don't want to, I've heard from literally over 100 people. I got back and I had 62 texts, and I don't know, and my voicemail is full again from people
Kevin,
saying how
I don't have that list. You have that list.
I know that, Marlene. I'm just saying for the record, because we're in a public meeting, I want to get that out there.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
So the con people contact me.
Yeah, exactly. So for this evening, what I was going to say, Bob, is exactly what Marlene was just saying, which is, I think it's really important that, the county council in the past, and I've been part of this in the past, as a council member, they will appoint the con folks. And I know that the folks who wrote our minority report are probably interested in that. I also know that there's some others who are. I also know there's a lot of others who would like to help us with the pro statements too, which is why the first part of your comment is what I wanted to recommend tonight, which is we ask our committee leads, and we're going to list them off right now for each of the amendments. We ask our committee leads to take the lead, and they will pull together either 1 or up to 3 people for the pro statement. And those will be the names that are listed under the pro statement. And so what I would like to recommend is that we go through right now. So let's do justice and equity. So justice and equity has 2 amendments that were submitted. And so Kyle and Jane are the two co-chairs of that committee. I would feel good about Kyle and Jane taking the lead on those two, and they pull together the team that they're going to work with to write them, as well as who those individuals are who will actually be listed. And we'll get those to the auditor, the names, not the writing. The writing is due on the 20th, but the names have to be to the auditor, hopefully by Friday. And for sure by her drop dead deadline, which was the end of the week. And then let's go through them. So then the Anne Marie is the chair of Climate and Environment. So the Climate and Environment Commission is another amendment. And so Anne Marie and then other members of that committee could work, or other members of the commission can work with Anne Marie. But we'll look to Anne Marie to take a leadership role in trying to pull people together on that. Help me out. What's another amendment? We've got
Introduction.
Okay, the introduction. So Bob, you've
Yep.
got the introduction,
Yes.
full introduction. So you're the chair of that subcommittee.
Yes.
So pull together a group on that.
I will.
Term limits, Maureen, are you, that's you?
Yes,
Okay.
I got the assignment.
Okay, great. And then what's our, I'm missing one. What, Patty?
Initiatives.
Thank you. Initiatives and referendums, right? Okay. Okay. So we've got our roles there. Are folks good with that? Okay.
Yes.
Sharon?
Yeah, so I've been the lead on the ranked choice voting, so I assume I need to get that in as well.
No, that one's not on this ballot.
Oh, that's right. Sorry.
Yeah. So, and the reason I'm really trying to push that back, Sharon, is not that it's not very important and there's not a lot of community interest, which there is. It's that the issues we're talking about right now are just more timely. We have to get this done in the next.
I
day.
totally understand. I should have realized that.
It's okay. It's great. It's great. Okay. So that's where we are with those. Bob?
Kevin, do we need to wait until the council appoints us to write the pro, or do we know we're going to be doing it?
I think this is the practice that the council has had for a long time on matters like this, and the advice of the auditor, I think, is well made. And so we can start working on it.
Okay.
I would be shocked if the council didn't move forward with the lists that we put forward, and it can be 1, 2, or 3 people on the committee who will be listed in the voters pamphlet. And remember, we have a very educated, engaged, well-informed group of voters in San Juan County, and so these voter pamphlet statements are read. So let's see. I have David.
If the members of the pro committee are chosen from the CRC itself, are those people limited in making their arguments to whatever is in the findings and in the minutes, or can they come up with new rationales for supporting and asking voters to support and vote pro?
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Were you finished?
I am finished. I hope you understand my question. If not, I'll try to repeat.
No. I think that's a really good question, and you're making a statement, so you're not going to. I would strongly recommend that you do not just summarize the findings. You want to make a statement about why this issue is important. What was the rationale that we used that excited us to advance this thing and have a majority of us vote for it? Why should the voters of San Juan County care? So this is a statement.
So you're saying we can come up with new rationales that were never discussed in minutes or in the findings?
I wouldn't go too far afield, David. But yeah. So we're gonna go to Bob.
Okay.
And I apologize, but I'm gonna have to step away here in just a sec.
Quick question, and this might be for Mylene. My question is this going to be a sequential thing where we put in the for and then the against responds, and then or is
No.
is there then a response to the against,
No,
or just
the
one
county-
statement?
The county does not allow rebuttals.
Okay, and so those will both be submitted separately without one seeing the other, and they'll
With
go
the
in like
same
that.
deadline, neither of you gets to see the other until they are published.
10-4, gotcha, thank you.
Great. Okay, I apologize, but if I don't leave, my mother-in-law will not get picked up at the airport. So.
Bye, Kevin. Thank you so
Back to
much.
Chad.
Well,
Thank
I'm going to
you.
call on myself because I've had
Olivia
my
will be
hand.
taking over as
Yeah.
chair. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm going to call on Paul and then Jane.
Mylene still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay, Mylene, is there a number of words that are limited that you wanted to tell us about?
Yes, the limit, now I'm talking off the top of my head, I think it's 200, but I'm going to be sending the brochure. We put together a handbook every year on writing the arguments for measures. And I'm going to send that to the whole body.
Thank you.
Great question.
Yeah, it's also a question for Mylene. So I put it in the chat. I'm just curious to know who decides on the final language for the pros and cons. Is that the committee that is struck to write them?
Yes, whatever you turn in will be printed verbatim. If you go over the word limit, we will truncate the last sentence or 2 or 3 sentences if we have to.
Yep. Okay. Thank you.
Liz?
Just wanted to point to Janet's comment about if there's 3 names listed, that maybe we want to just think about having a name from each of the islands. I thought that was a good idea.
All right, thank you for your comments. Any other questions for Mylene on this topic?
I have a question. Mylene,
David?
did I understood you to say that you do not check anything in the pro or con statements, for example, for accuracy? I mean, can there be inaccurate statements that do not get corrected and are not brought to the attention of either committee that, hey, you said something that's not true? Is that correct?
Unfortunately, that is correct.
Thank you.
Great. All right, any other questions for Mylene? All right, well, thank you all for this great discussion. And Mylene, thank you so much for being here to answer questions. I also just want to remind everyone that we are not supposed to be using our county email for this type of thing. This is a big deal because we are not supposed to be pro or con for anything, any writings. All communications need to be coming from your personal emails to Mylene in regards to this. We all had a conversation with Randy Gaylord, I believe 2 meetings ago, and also the meeting before where we talked about that. So just please remember to keep it to your personal email. All right, it's time for public comment.
Olivia?
Anyone?
Excuse me, if I may, I just want to expand on that a little bit. I will need to contact each of you who are writing arguments at your personal email, not at your county email. So I think I probably have access to that from when you all ran for office. But if you are in charge of one of those committees, you might want to reach out to me. Of course, I can use my work email because it's worked for me. But yeah, any communication about the arguments will be by personal email.
Thank you so much for reiterating that, Mylene. All right, we're going to go to public comment. If there's anyone from the public that would like to speak at this time, please turn your cameras on and or raise your hand or just speak up if you have dialed in. All right, any public comments? All right, we are going to close public comment. So it sounds like, I apologize. It looks like we do have a hand raised. I see Janet Alderton.
Hello. I don't know why my video is not working. I just wanted to thank all of you for your enormous efforts. That's my public comment.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Nice.
Janet. We appreciate that. All right, any more public comment? All right, so we are going to have our next meeting be August 18th at 4 p.m. And I believe we'll discuss more at that time. I've got a couple agenda items to add. and I've been taking notes throughout the meeting. And we'll be submitting that. It sounds like we'll also discuss findings during that time, edits, etc. So the next thing on the agenda is new business. Does anyone have any new business?
Yes.
Bob?
I don't know that we need to discuss it now. Maybe we just put it on the agenda for next time. But there is now, having been written by me at the request of a number of people, an amended proposed amendment. The proposed amendment I'm talking about was the one of the ones that came out of the process committee, which was called the Budget and Provisions Amendment. And it was to provide for the next CRC to make sure that they didn't run into some of the same bumps that we did. Well, the suggestion was to expand that particular amendment from that narrow budget to a somewhat wider, but still single subject thing, which is the CRC's process. And I have written, I have addressed the three problems that we have run into, and put them in this amendment, and I sent it out last night to everyone. And I'm quite sure that not everyone has read that, or probably not the majority of people have read it, but would have time to read it by the next meeting. So maybe we could schedule that to go on the agenda for the next meeting. Just for your information, the three items that were included on that were, when does the CRC close down, right? And I have made a certain suggestion regarding that, according to what most of us have talked about, not everyone. And the second thing is registering our amendments, and how do we do that? And how does our relationship with the auditor fit in with the council? And do we want to change it? Because we certainly can. And that has been addressed in here. And finally is a position on what we would like to happen, although I don't think we can control this. If we run into a conflict between ourselves and another a county official or group of officials, in this case, there certainly appeared to be at some time, I think we all recognized it, a potential conflict with the council, as we kind of both raced to address a certain issue. And the prosecuting attorney, in my opinion, was put in the unenviable position of having to represent us both. And I have got suggestions about what we, the council, can do or propose to do in that situation. And those are the three things that have been added to this process. And I understand that they may not all, you all may not want to include any of them. You may want to include all of them. You may want to include only 2 out of 3. I don't know, but we'll see. And I think it's worth the discussion, since I was asked to put this stuff together. There you go. If we can get it on the agenda for the next meeting.
Yes. Yep. I have.
And I would ask everyone to please read it.
Yes.
Please read it before the next meeting, so you can talk
absolutely.
intelligently about it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know that I read through it, and there is a lot of interesting information in there. So thank you, Bob, and I look forward to discussing at our next meeting. I hope all of you received it. If you have not, you can reach out to me or Bob, and we can make sure to get it to you. I see Maureen.
I have read it, Bob. I think it's really good. It's interesting, and it covers a lot of the things that we've been dangling with. But I want to be absolutely certain, is this a recommendation to council?
No, this is, we have already approved the original of this amendment, the CRC has, for inclusion on the 2022 ballot. So, and it was budget and provisions. We approved that. The suggestion now is that we back away and expand that, and then improve the expansion, if that's what the CRC would like to do.
That's why we need a list.
It's all for
Everybody
the,
needs a list.
right. It's all for 2022.
Got it. Thank you.
Any, Tom Stark?
Bob, I received your email today with all that information there. So you sent
Good.
it out.
Good, good. I'm glad that you've received it. I
Well, I
sent it to
presume-
every person here.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Any more new business? All right, and we've done public comment. I think we can have a motion to adjourn unless if anyone else has anything to bring up.
So moved.
Great.
Second.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we'll talk to you all soon.
Seconded? We got it seconded and everything?
First, second, Maureen?
Sure, second.
Thanks.
And then I vote.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you in 2 weeks.